But anyway, a little bit about me. I am a consultant in the service and experience space. I write for Forbes. They invited me to write a column for them. And I've just written a book, which looks like this. I'm very excited. It came out in April. My mum and dad are very proud. They now understand what I do because I've made something. Rather than just being a salesman of hot air, I've actually made something that they go, it's like having a proper job. Anyway, that's kind of what I do. I do this in my free time, and this is my little competition thing, I've got a rookie, so kindly asked me to come along and speak, and so I brought some books with me that I'm happy to give away. I'm on this, so if you see this, there's a little circle down in the bottom, and actually I'm going to come off kind of here. I'll show you, because there's that little spot there is me abseiling off a cliff face. It's not as adventurous as it looks. But then it's just a great photograph. Some friends of mine took it. So the competition is, and I want to give these books away because I don't want to carry them home. Anybody who comes up with a good guess or knows exactly where that is, then I'll give you a book. And if you want me to sign it, that's kind of fine, but I'll give you a book away at the end. Okay? But we're not going to do the guesses now if you have to hang around to the end, because if you guess now and get it right and come pick up the book, then you can leave, and that's not going to be good I'm not going to feel good about that. Anywho, so anyway, what am I here to talk to you about? Well, I'm not here to talk to you about big data and analytics, not directly, but I want to talk to you about customer experience, because actually I think it's the thing that is driving much of what we're talking about these days. Gartner said back a number of years ago that said, by now, and I think this is sort of true if we think about how we as people, not as professionals in businesses, but how we as people spend our money and choose our money, then customer experience, the experience that we get or the service that we can get drives our decision making. We have the power these days, and therefore, as businesses, this is becoming our primary directive. We want to make our service and experience as good as it can be, and potentially and hopefully market leading, right? You agree with that? Yeah? And there's all good reasons about why this can happen. There's been various studies that have said, customer experience leaders, they outperform the market by 40%. They go faster, they're more profitable, they're more likely to retain their customers. They benefit from higher customer spending. And when you as much as about 140%, depending on your business kind of model, all of this kind of good stuff, right? So then you add in the data and the analytics bit into the mix. And I think I'm really excited about all this sort of stuff that's kind of going on. I think it's a world of possibilities. But I think that's where the problem is. So I want to share with you just right now a few stories about some companies that are doing some really interesting things that are tying their use of data, artificial intelligence, very cool technology and analytics to improving the service and the experience that they deliver, helping their customers. The first one is from Bell Canada. And one of the challenges that they face is they noticed through their use of their analytics is that when they did a whole bunch of analysis, and they realized that a lot of their customers they could cluster them around events, and events was around purchasing new products. But what they also kind of realized is there was like follow-on events. When somebody purchased something, there was a follow-on event which meant a call into the call center around asking for instructions about how to do something. And through their analytics kind of program, what they ended up doing was being able to identify this and then go and work with their call center to say to them, actually, before you can hang up on somebody, forget your average handling time, getting people off the phone, spend a bit more time explaining to your customers, here's some problems that we know that you're going to have, and we're going to solve these kind of problems before you have them. So they started to use data and analytics and the technology to make their customer service more proactive. The call center volumes kind of went down, their loyalty went up, the SAT went up, all of this sort of good stuff started to happen because they were actually doing it to solve customers' problems and make the service and experience kind of better. Another example is from Budget Truck Rental. Now, what they were doing is, my colleague from earlier was talking about web analytics. What they realized is that there was a whole bunch of people arriving at their website that just couldn't find the answers that they were looking for. And so they worked with they put together some technology and all their analytics to figure out what were the things that people were looking for and map that against their call center data to understand what the problems kind of were, so they could solve customers' problems before it reached the call center. And what actually happened with them, which is brilliant, is that they reduced their call center volume by about 40%. People were happier, customers were happier, but actually they got another fillip on the other side of it because they knew that there was, well, they didn't know, but they found out by accident, is that there was a certain group of customers didn't want to speak to them, they wanted to self-serve. So actually they got a revenue boost by doing all this work on the front end, by giving all the customers all the answers that they needed so they could serve themselves. And that was just through their very clever and very focused use of data and analytics and technology. But then there's like people that are moving things on, rather than just being sort of reactive or trying to make things proactive, is they're starting to take things onto the next level. And the next level is typified by Westpac in Australia. And what they've done is they've got this idea where they've used their technology and the data analytics and to try to figure out what is their next best offer. Because what they looked at is they looked at all of their customers, and they found a particular set of customers and segments, and over time they realized that most of the customers went for product 1 to product 2 to product 3. And they realized that there was actually a 90% probability that if somebody went product 1, product 2, that they would go to product 3. They just didn't know about product 3, right? So they worked with all their tellers and their kind of banks and said, rather than actually doing an outbound sales process, they actually went to their tellers and said, look, when somebody comes in that's got product 1, product 2, our screens will tell you kind of who they are. Just mention to them, we've done some work. We know that you've got this product, this product. We know there's a whole bunch of people that are like you that have gone this product, and then they graduate to this one as well. And they achieved a 40% conversion rate when they did that. But what they were doing is they were talking about next best offer, but they were doing it as a way of trying to add value to their customer. But it also drove revenue lines as well. Then there's the next generation, which is only just starting to happen, and this features TalkTalk here in the UK. And rather than do the next best offer, they're talking about the next best action. So it's not rules based on revenue growth, it's rules based on what's best for the customer. So the TalkTalk's worked with, because I learned about this only last week, worked with kind of Pega, with their AI sort of module in their sort of their platform. And what they've done is that they've got to the point where they can give their agents in the contact center, they can give them options about what is the next best thing for the customer to do based on where they are on their life cycle and on their journey. And that might not be, the next best thing might not be to sell them something. The next best thing might be to get them to sign up to something, or to fix something, or to learn something, or whatever it might be, because they're playing the long game around, they want to build loyalty, because they know if they build loyalty and satisfaction, they build revenue and profitability in the long run. So I'm really excited about all of this sort of stuff, and how if we can leverage the technology, how we can exploit all these kind of possibilities and kind of help please and kind of excite and retain our customers. That's what I'm really interested in. But I speak to lots of people. I mean, through my writing and through the book and things, I interview lots of people, and I hear lots of different kind of challenges about this whole issue. And one of the big challenges that keeps coming up is we're talking about data, big data, and then there's like too much data. I mean, we talked about databases, and then we've had data warehouses, and now we've got data lakes. And I'm thinking, do I need to buy water wings or something? I'm not a big swimmer. And the thing I hear from people increasingly is that, well, crumbs, it's just big with a capital, all in capitals. And I'm not exactly sure how, many executives I speak to aren't necessarily sure where to start with all of this. It's just a challenge. It's a repeating message that comes through. And at the same time, like Martin was talking about, there's a lack of skills out there, not just at the data scientist level, but at the management and leadership kind of level, who knows what it means to leverage the data, and to leverage the analytics, and to leverage the technology. So there's this big kind of gap. You've got this huge opportunity, huge amount of data, but not a lot of kind of skills to tackle this. And then there's another thing. It's like, actually, it can be, there's a whole issue. It's like, it's another strategic imperative that pops up onto the agenda. And people go, ooh, shiny object. And then they get distracted by it. And it becomes this big thing. It's another thing that people, I think that a lot of CEOs kind of all get together, and it all becomes a collection of, it's almost like collecting football stickers. Somebody goes, oh, I've got this one. Have you got this one? And then they have to go off and get that sticker. And it can become a bit of a distraction because you get this kind of diktat that comes down that goes, well, you have to be in big data. We're not really sure why, but we need to be in it. And then, so that's another thing. So it can be a bit of a distraction. And then there's the next thing. And this is the thing that I'm most fearful of. And it's this idea of, have we been here before? And what I mean by that, and some of you might be familiar with this is a Gartner curve, a hype cycle curve. And all I'm going to say is, 10 or 15 years ago, I can't exactly remember when it arrived, but there was this big ballyhoo around the promise of CRM technology. And everyone went, oh, CRM, it's brilliant, that will save us, fantastic. Everybody started piling into CRM. There was this kind of excitement about it all. And then people went, oh. And it didn't quite deliver. So it just followed this. And then people's actually figured out, people that actually believed in it stuck with it and kept going, and it started to deliver value now. I don't want the data and the analytics and the technology profession to suffer another one of these. So therefore, we need to keep that in mind, that it's not just about the data and the analytics and the technology. It's not just about the possibilities, but it's about where we are and who we deal with and how we work with people. So, some things I've seen that I think that can help is, first of all, is this. Is rather than actually talking about big data, your data, you might have a lot of it, but rather than talking about data, make sure you get the most out of what you've already got. I talk about squeezing the lemon, squeezing the pips out. Sometimes you don't need to go looking for more. You need to understand how you can leverage what you've already got, what it's already telling you. Some people have got a lot of data. Some people haven't got a lot of data, but some people have got a lot of data that's not of great quality, but some people have got a little bit of data which is of a huge amount of quality, a huge amount of insight. So don't go off looking for something else before you've actually figured out how to use what you've already got. The second thing is this. I love this quote, and I can't remember. It's from I can't pronounce the guy's name. It's a Polish-American scholar. And the quote is that the map is not the territory. And my point is that the data is a manifestation of what is reality. But it'll take you some of the way there. It might answer some of the questions, but won't necessarily take you all of the way there. I always have, but when people sometimes ask me to describe myself, I say, I'm a fan of simplicity and the human touch with a really useful bit of technology thrown in. And this is what I want to kind of say, is that the map is not territory. There's a difference between, we can think about the hard analytics, the hard kind of like data and the big data, but I'm really, really interested in the soft data. And I want to tell you a couple of stories around kind of the insight that you can get, that's the difference between the kind of big data and the soft data. One is from a chap. Anybody get their shoes fixed at TIMPSON's? Yeah? I did the other day, actually. But I had the pleasure of meeting John Timpson the other week. And he told me a story where he said, I don't actually spend a lot of time looking at figures and looking at kind of data. He said, but I tell you what I do. I spend at least 2 days a week out visiting stores and speaking to people and speaking to my staff. And also, I don't know if you know this, they're going into the dry cleaning business. They've just bought Morrison's dry cleaning business. So there's like 160 different stores in Morrison's with the possibility to expand across their footprint. And he said to me, I didn't really look at the deal numbers. I didn't really look into sort of, the data, the analytics behind the kind of the business. He says, but what I did do is that I visited 70 of those 160 concessions before I got comfortable with doing the deal. I met the people, I saw the locations, I met the customers, I understood the environment, I understood where the possibility, I got that visceral feel for what it was to be in front of kind of the people that operated the business, but also bought from the business. There's other examples that, there's an example of, we all know Lego. We all know Lego's story, how they went from being probably a success in our childhoods. We all know that they went through kind of hard times, and then they kind of re-emerged as this new kind of like champion, this modern day champion. But do you know that back in sort of 2004, all their data was telling them that everything was going digital, they should be kind of thinking about how they make an online, so digital experience and things. But then they went out and spoke to a whole bunch of their customers, particularly one 11-year-old boy who was a Lego user. And they went to see him in his home. Obviously, had his parents' permission, obviously. And then they were talking to him, and they asked him, kind of, what do you like? What are you passionate about? What's your favorite object? And I don't know if many of you know this story, but he runs across the room, and he picks up a pair of battered Adidas trainers. And one of them looks almost like brand new, and the other one is all scuffed and worn away and all sort of slightly got these knobs and edges on it because he's a skateboarder. And those trainers are his favorite object. You know why? Because it's a badge of ability. It shows him to be one of the best skateboarders in town. And that put a light bulb went on in the Lego team's head, and they can realize that actually their data was telling them they should be digital, but actually the insight came from being the human story. The insight came from actually creating something that people were passionate about, and the data wouldn't have told them that. So that's why they ended up, rather than making their bricks bigger and going into digital and everything else, they went, we're going to go back to basics. We're going to make our bricks the same sort of size, in fact, smaller and more complicated. And we're going to create something that people get so immersed in, that they're so passionate about. It's a bit like multiplayer games or role-playing games or all these different sort of things, or skateboarding or surfing or climbing or whatever it might be, that people do it because they want to achieve something. And it's something they can share with other people, and it's something that they can do together. And then the final story, which is brilliant, and it's a very short one. There's a company called Dot & Bow, who are a furniture retailer in the US. They're particularly focused on the millennial generation. It's very kind of almost like they use kind of direct TV type of style of things, very themed approach to sort of selling or presenting the furniture. But they're completely online. But one of the things that they learned, they looked at their analytics and they were like, oh, there's something strange going on. And people aren't buying from us on their tablets. They're not executing things on their tablets, but they are executing on their phones and on their desktops. And they were like, what? Looked at the analytics, they didn't understand. So they actually had to go out and talk to people and understand what it was. Do you know why people were spending more on their smartphones than they are on their tablets? Because it's easier to type with a smartphone. Because the millennial generation, they've got very developed thumbs. And so they're there. They find it easier. So they would view something on a tablet, but typing on a tablet's not easy. But on a phone is easy. And they could only kind of learn that by going out and speaking to people and actually observing them and understanding them. And so my challenge, my hope, my plea to you is to not just rely on the data to take you all of the way there, but to actually go out and speak to your customers, because that will inform what you do with your data. Because one thing I want to leave you with is this idea, this quote, is that I think we need to stop talking about data and analytics and technology. But I think we need to start talking about brand outcomes and customer outcomes. Because in the end, that's all that really matters. And that's all. Thank you, folks.